Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. If you haven't already, you got to come and join us on Discord at discord.gg/REI Rev. Make sure you're in the Discord and participating with us. Telling you, you haven't already, drop a like on the video, drop a comment letting us know what you learned, especially if you're watching on the YouTube replay. Today we got a banger live stream for you. We've got Mr. John B coming on, the $0 landlord, to share with us how to become a $0 landlord. John, how are you doing today?
It's getting crazy over here, but it's good, man. So very excited to get all this content out here for everybody, which is hopefully going to be the best 1 hour they can possibly have, and we're going to learn as much as possible.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited, man. Let's rock and roll.
For sure. Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a fire hose type for information. So I'm going to just try to belt through this as fast as I possibly can. But I do want everybody to type your questions in the chat. And then also I will pause intermittently for questions as they come up. But this is a lot of information I want to get through because I want to keep this really organized. So it's supposed to be like a boot camp, right? And it's like supposed to be really aggressive on it. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So what we're going to be talking about here today for day one of the boot camp, which we're going to be doing this every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time in REI Rev. Then it's going to be for day one, we're talking about frameworks and calculations. So frameworks is like, how we're going to think about the problem before we actually try to solve them. So what is this boot camp? Why are we here? What is this all about? So the objective is to teach a highly dense free course that enables anybody and everybody who wants to buy multifamily property for no money, right? And I've done this, so I get to say this, and I'll talk about me in a second, but I want to give out value first. So if you eventually need a business partner, you might think of me, but honestly, I just want to get this out there first. I don't really necessarily want to be your first business partner. I don't even want to be your second maybe, but on your third, when you're dealing with some higher level stuff, then that actually might make sense. So really just trying to put as much energy out as I can for everybody. It's like, just learn as much as you can as possible. So here we go. And this is all free too. I got a lot of buddies that run courses that are making hand over fist money. I don't want to do that. I am not the course guy, just because you're not going to trust a word I say, because if you think I'm in it for a buck. So that's what I'm just being really upfront about it. And I spent a lot of time on this slide deck and making sure, not necessarily from like aesthetics, make sure it looks pretty, because I don't really care about that. I want to make sure it's good actual. So give me feedback right here so that I can make this even better the next time. And this can continue to help other people out. So if I'm trying to give out a lot of stuff for free, just help me out. Give me a quick 60 seconds of feedback. All right, let's go into me real fast. There's a little quick synopsis on me. So this is a good case study, by the way. So I bought a $250K mobile home park for $335K, $85,000 over value in September 2023. So that was for no money down, though. That's kind of weird, right? 100% seller financing, you're not going to run into that every day. We fixed all the problems, all the management issues in 75 days flat, which basically tripled the net income. And then it appraised for $800K 1 year later. So that is a $465K gain, over 2x the value of the property in 1 year. We did 100% remote, never even been to the property. I don't even want to be on the property. I don't want to lick the doors or pet it or anything. Right? It's like it's on the other side of the country. I don't even care. And we do a great job with it. We got 2 other partners, so we all do less work. And I got 40% ownership on it, so I made $186K on that. And I do 1 hour a week on average. And let's just put that in perspective. That's $3,500 an hour. Right? So it's not at all, I'm not saying, hey, I'm a gazillionaire. I'm just saying I work really efficiently. And that's what I'm going to be trying to teach out here. Right? So how to work efficiently. Whoops. Sorry, I popped over there. All right. $3,500 an hour is higher than anesthesiologists, orthodontists, psychiatrists, emergency physicians, pilots, chief executives, dentists, everybody, right? It's top 25 jobs in the US. It's higher than all their salaries combined. Times 1.5. And I've done it a dozen times. And if you need to see more about my stuff or any of my track records, any of my deal history, everything, I put it all out there for free so people can vet me and make their own assertions about me. So go on the website, $0landlord.com. And here's a little bit more stuff about me. Because again, if I'm going to be talking for an hour, I want you to make sure you understand who I'm talking, or who's talking to you, and why they might be somebody that you might want to listen to or not listen to. Again, I'm trying to let you make your own judgments here. So I made $7 billion for the US government. Did a lot of cool stuff with that. Started multifamily investing in August 2022, and then I bought 8 figures of stuff after that. It's about 300 units. And did almost all of it for $0 out of pocket. I gotta say almost, because I bought a house or two every now and then by myself. So I don't get to say 100% of it, unfortunately. So 80% of the stuff, though, I bought was in a 1 year time span. So it's 80% of 300 units. I did that in 1 year, and I'm also about top 200 mobile home park buyers according to that source. Again, you can see more stuff on the website, $0landlord.com. And I've directly partnered with 6 people to buy their first rentals for $0 out of their pocket, and I've directly partnered with them for free on that. 4 out of 6 now have over $100, or have definitely over $100, over 100 rentals, and they did that in 1 year. So what I'm saying does work. You just have to also be willing to put in the work on your end. But I will teach everything here for free. There's no catch, because again, we can make money together. And that is the whole idea here. And that's why I think REI Rev in particular is a really good community, because everybody can collaborate together and everybody can add value to each other. So here's a quick overview of everything we're going to be talking about here. Please type out questions, wait until the end, or at least as late as possible, just because again, I got a lot of stuff I want to get through, because I want to make this a fire hose of just pure gold for everybody. Because I'm trying to distill everything I've ever done into 5 1-hour slide decks, and this is one of them. So, all right, this is why not single family, right? So I'm going to be bashing very briefly single family, and here's the reason why. Because it is valued off of the Smith family, right? And the Smith family is making it harder, because the Smith family is determining how easy it is for you to invest, because they care about how the house feels. They don't necessarily care about how much it makes, because they're not in it for that reason. They're literally in the house to live. Versus the entire rest of the world economy operates off of return, right? It matters how much money does it make. It doesn't matter how it feels. I'm not buying an apartment complex to feel every unit. I'm buying it because I care about the return, because I'm an investor. So that's how the entire rest of the world works. Is everybody else is on one side and say, hey, we care about actual return. And then you got single family, where you got some people that are investors and most people that aren't investors. And it really kind of screws things up. So why multifamily in particular? So rentals are always going to be in demand, and they're not going to sit vacant very long, versus offices, commercial, industrial, et cetera. Those can sit vacant for a while, and you can make money with those too. But I'm just saying, here's why I'm not going to talk about those things. And here's why I personally haven't done them. It's because it's really easy. Because if it's always in demand and it's not ever going to go away and everybody needs a place to live, it's always going to be a business that stays in. Versus offices got absolutely destroyed during COVID. So this boot camp is going to apply to single family portfolios, quadplexes, mobile home parks, and apartments. And I've bought all this stuff, so I get to talk about that. But I really just do a lot of stuff in mobile home parks. And they all function the exact same way. Again, emphasis is single family home portfolio. It has to be a lot of units. It has to be multiple in order to be multifamily. So all of it is based off of math. I'm qualified to say it because I bought several apartments and single families, but I really like parks. And the reason why I like parks, which I'm not just going to be talking about parks this whole time, but why I like parks in particular is because it's value add. Because there's a lot of messed up parks out there, but there's not a lot of messed up apartment complexes by comparison. There are a couple, it's just a lot harder to find. So that's a quick overview of why we're going to be talking about this stuff. But then let's talk about why are we actually caring about buying stuff at all? Because I get a lot of people that are like, well, I just want to wholesale money or wholesale so I can wholesale. Well, that's great too. That is a legitimate strategy. There's nothing wrong specifically with that. However, if you don't do it right, you're going to have a lot of credibility loss. So who would you trust more to spot issues and tell you the issues with a car? Would you trust the car salesman who's never owned a car? Or would you trust the mechanic who makes a living fixing cars? Well, most buyers are going to be looking at this with a label of wholesaler and landlords. And that's not necessarily always fair, because maybe they're not, if you're a wholesaler, maybe you're not looking at it that way. But if you are both, you can have a lot more reputation, which is why I tell everybody, it's if you want to wholesale, that is totally fine. However, I really think you should consider buying some stuff so you actually understand the mechanics of what goes into owning and operating these things too. So the mechanic can do both, basically. So that is every wholesale that I have done has been very, very, very high compared to everybody else who's not able to do it. And I don't usually wholesale. I usually just buy. So it makes it a lot more compelling if I'm trying to sell something. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm blocking the screen here for a couple of these things. But yes, Giga Chad approves. So, all right. What is syndication exactly in a nutshell? So syndication is buying property with partners. That is the simplest, fastest definition to explain it. So that is general partner shares, which is a GP, are the sweat equity guys. They are responsible for stuff. They don't swing the hammer, but they tell the guy with the hammer to go fix stuff. Right? They pay with their time, not with their money. And then you have limited partner shares. So limited partners, they don't do any work. They are completely passive, but they pay for everything. And then your debt partner is somebody that lends you money. And you will hear the term debt partner, but it's really a bad misnomer. So it's like a misnomer, it's not labeled correctly, because they're not actually a partner in the company. They do help you out in that regard. So they might lend you money, like a bank, for instance. So a GP is the guy that does all the work. An LP is chilling on a beach, making money passively. And that's legitimate passive income usually. And then the bank obviously is Scrooge McDuck, making a ton of money, hand over fist off you. So, and that's fine. It's okay to pay the bank sometimes. All right. We're going to talk about this again here in a different format. So let's just say you buy a $500K property that is going to end up selling for $700K in 1 year. A bank might lend $400K on it, which means that the LP needs is going to throw in 100K. So here's exactly what that kind of looks like, right? So you got your LP, they're throwing in 100K for the down payment, and then you got a bank that's going to fill in the rest. So you've now financed the entire property effectively because you are bringing on a LP instead, a limited partner. But the catch is the limited partner is going to take 80% ownership of the property, right? That's a big chunk. So, but you get 20% out of the LLC, but you put in no money, like zero money in this. So this is the core mechanic of what we're going to talk about here, basically. So a bank would profit 40K from the interest. That's 400K times 10% interest, maybe. The LLC, which is you and the limited partner together, are going to be having a 260K proceed. There's the math there, if that doesn't make sense. So the limited partner is going to get 80% of the proceeds on that. So they're going to make they're going to get back 208K, which is a great return because they put in 108K. Or they put in 100K, so they make it 108K rather. So that's 108% return in 1 year. So that's a pretty solid deal for the limited partner. Like they're going to fund that all day long. And then you get 52K, and yeah, you did all the work, but you did no money in. So that's an infinite return. And that's the really cool area. That's where math starts to break. That's free real estate. So that's what I do. So I do everything so I have an infinite return because I do it for no money in, and I try to get as good of a deal as possible on the limited partner and on the property. So leverage is how you get to that point. So leverage is the means by which you put what you have in to get what you want out, right? And Alex Mosey has a really baller definition for this, which is basically exactly what it says. The difference between what you put in versus what you get out. Alex Mosey is like the bearded Jack dude that's from acquisition.com that has a lot of really good business knowledge out there. So definitely go look up his stuff if you haven't already. So the big three for leverage is going to be capital leverage, which is using debt to buy stuff. So that's when you buy things when you don't have enough cash, right? Time leverage, which is when you don't have, for instance, enough time. So maybe you hire somebody. And then there's skill leverage, which is maybe you're just not good enough at something. And that could be like many things because like nobody out there is like, the absolute best at everything. So you have to rely on skill leverage at the end of the day. And this is one that a lot of people miss. So a skill leverage would be hiring somebody to do something that maybe does it better than you or just do something you don't even know how to do at all. All right, so for a lot of you guys out there, for instance, a good example would be like acquisitions on wholesaling versus disposition on wholesaling. So it's like maybe you understand acquisition, but you don't understand disposition at all, or you don't want to. So you might just partner with somebody instead and do a JV deal, right? So you're using their skill as a dispo agent, so to speak, in order to help out your deal. So you're leveraging off of their skill. So we're going to talk about capital leverage here for a second. So if you're buying a house for 100K and you rehab it for 20K of materials, and now it's for 200K. So that's exactly what that looks like, 120K out of pocket, and that is a 80K profit, right? There's the math that doesn't make sense. Pretty straightforward addition, subtraction. So that's a 67% return in that scenario. So that's 80K profit divided by 120K in. So your capital leverage is when you use a bank. So you instead are going to be using a lender in the scenario. And yeah, it's going to cost you 10K. So it will say 40K out of pocket. But what's nice is it's 40K, not 120K, because you're doing 10K down plus your 20K rehab plus call it 10K for fees that maybe you got to pay that up front for whatever reason. So that's a 70K profit. Again, the bank fees are what took that out. Now you have a 175% return. That is significantly better. But yes, you had slightly less profit, right? So very tiny less profit, but a lot higher. And I apologize that I'm blocking the screen here, but you get the point. Okay, so time leverage. Time leverage is when you buy a house, for instance, for like 100K cash, we're just saying straight up cash, no bank financing, etc., just because I want to keep it simple. And you're going to rehab it yourself for 6 months. It's going to cost 20K materials worth 200. So that's exactly what that looks like. 80K profit, 6 months. There's the math. Time leverage, though, is when you would hire a contractor maybe to do it faster. Let's just assume you have the same skill level as a contractor, but that he can just do it faster because he does this full time, right? And now you're able to buy a second house and do the exact same thing. So that's 70K profit month 1 through 3, 70K profit in month 4 through 6. So now you just did 140K in 6 months rather than 80K. So you have free time and a higher percent profit, and you made more money. So time leverage sharpens your profit curve is the best way to put it, right? It's increasing your annual percent of return and increase your total return. Boom, right there. right? And the reason why I'm talking about leverage so much here is because when we get into actually like the meat of the stuff, you're going to need to know these concepts, which again, what I call it, frameworks and calculations. So hopefully okay, my headset just died, but all good. So I still got the audio here. All right. So don't sacrifice quality for time. It is always going to be worse off at the end of the day. So if you don't do this right, you're going to end up with the landlord special, and everybody's seen that. It's just the crappy stuff that nobody wants to live in, and you really don't want to be sacrificing your quality, but you do want to make sure you get things done as fast as possible. So here's an example for skill leverage. You're buying 10 homes for a mil. The bank is going to lend you 70%, or basically 70% in that case. So call it 700K. So you need to raise 300K. And then let's just say the property is going to profit 400K over 3 years. So that's 800 hours to coordinate contractors, management, admin, and finances. So let's just say you're really good at management and contractors, so it's going to take you half the time. So that's 300K funding, which again, you needed that 300K up here to fill in the gap for 70% of equity. So since you're profiting 30%, that basically equates to you're making 120K over 3 years. But you're really good at, contractors and management here, right? So you're able to do this in a fraction of the time, which means that you work 600 hours and you make 120K. So that's a pretty good dollar an hour, $200 an hour. I don't think anybody here is constantly working $200 an hour. That's like really, really high rate, right? So with skill leverage, though, you can make that 200 an hour, right? So again, we have a 120K profit at 200 an hour. Those are the two numbers to remember there. On this here, this is assuming you use skill leverage. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring on a partner who's better than you are, or I am, or whatever. And they're going to be twice as good at admin and finances. So the finance savvy guy is going to get a better deal when he raises capital. So he's getting, instead of for 300K for 70% equity, now it's 300K for 50% equity, which means the two of y'all have 50% equity. But then, there's two people. So now it's going to be 25%, 25% equity each, right? And that's, when you run the math, that's basically saying 100K. So again, it was 120K before for 600 hours versus now it's 100K for, let's see what it looks like. So the partner adds an admin system, which is going to save you a lot of time with contractors because, again, they're really good at admin. And then also they're going to reduce a bunch of tenant issues with a bunch of verbiage, like legal verbiage, for instance, right? So it's going to save you 20 hours work with management. And then also you're good at management. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to have management create reports that are better for finance stuff. So your finance partner gets to save some time too. So you'll end up working 155 hours total. Pretty good, right? That's a lot better than 600. And then you're going to average $645 an hour. So that is significantly higher. Your partner is going to end up working 170 hours, and for the total profit there at the end of the day is going to be doing $588 an hour. So you can hopefully see where it's like, it's very slightly less profit, but actually like the total company profit is higher and is way, 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 way more efficient. All right. In conclusion, you did it in a fraction of the time, and you still did it. So this is how the rich guys, like Bezos, I guarantee you Bezos is not running around delivering every package out in their existence. He's hiring the skilled delivery driver that's doing the work for him like that. And he's also bringing on other, skilled partners on the board of directors or whatever. All right. So who is a better pilot? This or this, right? You get skill leverage by being perceived as more skill, but you keep it by actually being more skilled. So if you call up a plumber and he does a crappy job on the first time, you're not going to hire him twice, right? So you actually want to legitimately be good at it, but it is key to remember it is perception technically at the beginning that gets you there. So other types of leverage here, which I'm going to go through this part very quickly because this is getting a little bit too ethereal perhaps. And you guys are like, okay, where's the real estate part of this? But we have been talking about so far. It's like capital, time, and skill. But here's some other ones that you can have, for instance, right? So you got Ryan Reynolds here. And I don't know if you know what company this is for, but odds are you probably do because you know who Ryan Reynolds is. So this is Mint Mobile. And you know about it because you've seen a movie with Ryan Reynolds. Probably this, okay one, I guess. So that is an example of brand leverage. They partner with him, he partners with them, etc. People buy because they know Ryan Reynolds, but Ryan Reynolds doesn't necessarily know them, right? They just know of this person. Content would be pretty much exactly what we're doing right now. There's how many people got in the audience? 44 people in the audience. This would take me 44 hours if I was going to be explaining this. But instead, there's one platform where it's like, boom, let's just explain it to 44 people all at once. So you can do it through content as well as a good leverage. Relationship is if you know them and they know you, and maybe you get a better deal on like a roof, for instance. Then information leverage is maybe you are a roofer and you're buying a house that allegedly has a bad roof, but it turns out actually it's not a bad roof. So information can be used to your advantage as well and it'll get leverage. And if you're wondering why you're not doing well in your current position or why you don't have what you want out of life, it's because you're not using leverage the way you need to. And there's a lot of different types. So if you're really good at one or two things, but maybe not at the rest, use those items to your advantage. Use the types of leverage you have at your disposal, which is why I'm talking about all these things. So for instance, there's code, right? Code is a huge one I think a lot of people miss out on because they run their wholesale calculations like this when they should be doing it like this. Right, I run everything through Google Sheets. I mean, everything through Google Sheets. So that's a killer one where it's like most people just can't calculate anything because they don't know how to do like very, very basic math, right? But code can help you out with that. And then you can also have a process instead. So if you're not using like a checklist or something like that when you go to actually inspect a property, you're just wasting your own time. Or instead of calling up a tenant and asking them for their information, you can just send them a lease. All right, there's just some examples here on like process leverage. And then real quick, we can also do optimization leverage. So that's like Walmart, just way more optimized at everything than mom and pop. So they just win every time. Not even necessarily on price, right? People might just want to buy from them because they have a better supply chain logistics or better variety or whatever. It's just a lot of aggregation of things. And then also resource, which is maybe you just have more money than the other guy. So you can just beat them out, right? And that's why a lot of people as wholesalers will offer cash deals. So they'll say like, hey, I can buy your house cash because it's like, hey, I got more resources. But you got to be a little careful with that because you can actually mess up some people's lives if you don't end up disposing the deal because you're pretending that you have the cash technically, right? Unless you got a legitimate cash buyer or you got some good people there in that position. So just make sure to be very ethical about this stuff as you go through. But that's exactly the reason why people would take a cash offer is because of resource leverage. All right. If you haven't learned anything, good for you. Come off mute and say it. I want to hear it. It's like, wow, that's amazing. I went all through that and not a single thing. Otherwise, you can pay me in 60 seconds of feedback right here. So please go on there. That is literally just, I want to know how I can improve, how I can make this even better for everybody. That is it. There's no catch on here. It's literally just want to understand it. You can also go join email lists, etc. I got a bunch of other stuff and we do a bunch of deal reviews, etc. And yes, I got John Johnson's permission to do this. So tell him if you are finding it valuable. Light up the chat as much as you possibly can right now. Give a little feedback here. Give me a little feedback. See if this stuff is even worth it. Otherwise, I am definitely spinning my wheels over here. But I'm hoping this has been at least a little bit educational here before we get into the really nitty gritty here in just a second. So again, make sure to let them know. Really give them that feedback. But also please do give me the feedback, especially if you see clerical errors, which there are a couple in here. All right. Here's the important stuff. Yeah, brass tacks and nuts and bolts. All right. I'm just kidding. I'm doing the jokes. All right. We got gross operating income is going to be your total annual income, right? That is the total annual income for a property, that is. So it's going to be rent. It's going to be other stuff. It's usually just rent. That is like 9 times out of 10, it's going to be just rent, but it might be like the laundromat in the basement or something else. All right. You also have expenses. That's going to be what the property incurs, not what the owner incurs. It's what the property incurs. So that's going to be management, property tax, insurance, maintenance, lawn care, et cetera, right? That's everything that's related to the property. That does not mean the owner's income tax. It does not mean the owner's loan payments because that's the owner's stuff. That's not actually the property stuff. And you also don't include the tenant paid stuff. If a tenant's paying for their own, utility bill or food delivery service, it's like that's not the property's business. That's not the property's expense, right? So your net income per year, known as net operating income, is going to be your gross minus your expense. Wild stuff, right? It's like, what is your net income? It's just gross minus your expense. But it's really important to define what are expenses because a lot of people just throw in a bunch of random stuff they don't need to. So NOI and GOI are always going to be annual. So if you see the term GOI, that's referring to an annual, by the way. So everything else could mean monthly or potentially annual. Just make sure you're reading the fine print and seeing how it's specified. But if you just see it by itself, it means annual by default. All right. Operating expense is going to be your expense divided by your gross. And the best way to think of this is like an opposite of your profit margin. So it's like, how much are you losing as a result of renting out, right? So it's like saying, like, I have income and I'm paying between 20 to 50% towards the property, right? So it's like your taxes, water, whatever that is that you were paying as the landlord. So then you got your cash flow, which is your net income minus your mortgage payments. And it's just the principal and interest, by the way. The reason why is a typical loan payment is wrapped in with other stuff. So you got your PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But again, your taxes and insurance are already accounted for as an expense. So you got to make sure you separate those out. Don't just like, do a quick and dirty on it. Like, actually make sure it's the principal and interest are what's considered the mortgage payment. Don't count it twice. Like I just said, it's accounted for already. All right. Hope everyone's holding on for this giant fire hose because it's been a lot of stuff, and I really want to make sure we're belting through and get maximum value out there. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat too, by the way. I will get around to them here at the end for sure, but it will probably be easier if you write them down as you go. All right. So here's a quick example. We're going to calculate everything out here, right? So if we have the following assumptions about our property, or maybe the seller tells us information or whatever, what do we include in NOI? And I do have a clerical error on here, by the way. You would include property rent, taxes, management, insurance, and electric. You don't include sewer or water because it's paid by the tenant. Again, apologies on the green box there. That's actually a clerical error on my end. Again, you don't count the mortgage, and you don't count tenant stuff, right? You're just talking about the property. That is it. Just the property stuff. Right, so your GOI would look like that, which is basically your rent times 12. Because we're doing it per year, and then your expenses per year. I'm just expressing everything in per year format, and then there you go. So GOI equals $12,000, expenses equals $3,000, or 3.3, right? So we're not dealing with like massive rocket science here. This is just really what is our gross, what's our expense. So that's what it looks like, and a little more broken down. Net equals gross minus expense, and then our OPEX. We want to know what that ratio looks like just for kicks. So it is 27.5, and then our cash flow, which is what everybody gets all excited about, is going to be your net income minus your mortgage, right? And if you already know all this stuff, good. You have a good foundation, but I'm hoping I'm explaining it in at least somewhat of a manner that's a little different than what you're used to hearing. So maybe next time you explain it to somebody else, you can perhaps explain it in a more efficient manner. So, all right. So now we have price versus value, and this is something a lot of people get different. So if anybody knows of the person who's sold a couch or has a couch listed on Facebook Marketplace or something, and they have it listed for like $1,200 and it's used. You're like, why would you possibly have it listed for $1,200? Like, well, I bought it for $1,300. They paid the price of $1,300, but that doesn't mean the value equals price. So price does not equal value. So price is how much you're buying something for. Value is how much it's worth. And arguably something is worth what you can sell it for. Right, so fair market value, you hear that term thrown around a lot. That's what it's talking about. It's like, what is it? What can it sell for? So if I have a house, I'm not going to put it on my net worth tracker as whatever I, think it's worth. I'm going to put it on there for what I think I can actually sell it for at the end of the day. Right, so make sure you stand really unbiased and realistic, and also always keep in mind that if something's listed for 100K and it's not sold, it is definitely not worth 100K. It is worth less than 100K. So go ahead and negotiate really hard. And then people feel. I'm dodging out of the way here. People feel, or people buy when they feel that value is greater than price, not necessarily when that's actually the case, right? Because again, it's how much are they willing to buy for, and buying is an emotional decision a lot of times. So if that house that is listed for 100K, if I personally think it's worth 110K, then great. To me, it has 110K of value, which it's 110K of value basically in perceived value in that case. So that's when I would make the decision to buy because I'm thinking I'm getting a 10K profit. So value is determined by the market, basically. All right. So we got cap rate. Cap rate is really critical, and this is probably like one of the last layers of like foundational knowledge we need in order to really explain here's how to make millions and millions of bucks in multifamily real estate and why it's awesome operating multifamily real estate versus like perhaps maybe just like, one single family just doesn't operate the same way. It's because of cap rate. So cap rate is your net income divided by your total cost basis. So it'd be like your price plus rehab, or like your value potentially if you're selling it. So it's relative depending on how you're using it. So if I'm saying it's my cap rate at purchase, then I'm going to use all the variables for purchase. So If I'm using it for sale, then I would say cap rate at sale. So I'd say NOI divided by value, because again, value is when you sell. So if a property is bought for 100K with a 9K NOI, net income per year, right? That's a 9% purchase cap rate. And then if the same property is listed for 100K, but it has 10K net income this time, then that's a 10% selling cap rate, right? So cap rate is a objective measurement of a property's annual return without debt or income taxes. So that basically means it's regardless of who or how it's bought, right? So if I buy a property and you buy a property and it's the same property, then it should have the same cap rate. It has literally nothing to do whether or not I'm using a bank, has nothing to do with whether or not you pay a ton in taxes because you're a baller and you make a ton of cash, right? That is not the point. It's literally, it's like, how's the property doing? So fair market cap rate, we can start to use this cap rate formula here pretty well. So if we have net income divided by price equals cap rate, then similarly, I can redo this equation by pulling price over to this side, and I can say price equals NOI divided by cap rate, right? So just a little algebra 1 there, nothing super advanced, hopefully. So price is when you are selling, or I'm sorry, price is when you are buying, but value is when you are selling. So make sure to use it correctly in here. So if we're saying fair market cap rate, we're talking about if we're selling stuff, right? It was because it's determined by the market. Yeah, because cap rate at purchase frequently will not equal cap rate at value, because our cap rate from value is determined by comparable properties. And this is the one thing that you actually do comp with multifamily or like self-storage or like businesses or literally everything else on the freaking planet other than single families. The one item you use as a comparable is the cap rate. You can look at fair market rent too, but that's not as important. Cap rate is really important to comp out. If you can't be accurate though, be pessimistic, which means be, assume the worst. All right. So here's where the real part happens. This is where hopefully a lot of people's like brains are going to start firing off with like, oh my God, this is the Matrix, right? So if we buy 100K property at 15K NOI a year, right? That's a 15% cap rate. Also known as 15 cap is what we call it. So if our fair market cap rate though is 10%, like most people are willing to buy it at a 10% cap rate, I'm going to work that formula backwards. So I'm going to say NOI divided by cap equals value, which means 15K NOI divided by 10% equals 150K. This concept right here is how to make $1 million. Really understand it. Like this is literally going to be like the fastest possible way for anybody in real estate to make a ton of money very quickly is exactly this, right? Because we're compressing it from 15 cap down to a 10 cap. That's the terminology they use, is cap rate compression. You can also push it further, but you have to make it right? So you have to make it worth somebody willing to pay it at a 7% rate of return, right? So if we did that, that'd be worth 214K, and we just bought it for 100K. So now we can call it 114K profit. So why does this matter, and how does cap rate matter? So assume property A and B are the exact same, but B is hard to run. Then if A has a 9 cap, then B should probably have a higher percent rate of return. And that just kind of intuitively makes sense, hopefully, right? They're the exact same in every way, except one of them is a huge pain to deal with. Then the one that's a pain to deal with should give me more money, right? I need a higher rate of return, right? So if it's operating is more work, then the cap rate should be higher. So here's a good example from stuff that you don't have to do work on, such as savings accounts and managed funds and maybe long-term holds on stocks, versus stuff you do have to do a lot of work on, which is like property A, maybe property B, maybe owning a business. So it depends on what you're using it for. It depends on what the scenarios are for like risk or return or whatever else. But if we're assuming they're the exact same on all variables, except for how much time it takes to operate the property, then yeah, it should be worth a higher rate of return so that I can justify having a good dollar an hour, basically, right? That's basically the equivalent of like getting a quote unquote promotion to do more work with the same salary. So like nobody wants to do that. All right. Fair market cap rate. We're going to look at the red cells are if you're buying and green cells are if you're selling. So I just want to take a second to look at this. All right. So your purchase price, if we're calling it 100K, and then let's just say our NOI is 9K right here, then our purchase cap rate would be 9%, right? Very easy to formulate out. But let's just say that we determined through ample amounts of research that our fair market cap rate is 8%. Then we could run the equation backwards to then figure out that our fair market value is 112K. Again, now we actually just got x-ray vision. We know that this thing is worth $12,000 more than what we're buying for. So that's how you make a bunch of money on a purchase, right? Found a winner, boom. Sometimes it's really dramatic. Sometimes it's not as low as 12K. Sometimes you're making a ton of money on purchase. We've made like $500,000 before just on the buy, not even having to do anything. All right. So here's an expanded view, and I don't want you to freak out and think, oh my God, there's a lot of Excel. Because look at it right here in the gray, gross total, expense total, NOI, cash flow, fair market value. Like we just covered all those concepts a second ago. I'm just adding in all the details and the fluff to make it justify that. Like here's all the expenses, right? You really do want to make sure you learn this though, because if you don't, you're going to have a bad foundation, and it's like having a mud hut, right? So a mud hut, it cannot scale very high, right? You got to have a steel reinforced foundation for a skyscraper, which is why I started talking about a bunch of stuff like leverage or whatever at the beginning. And if you need a link to the slide deck, you can get the entire thing right there for free. Not going to charge you $15,000 like everybody else. You can just go ahead and scan it right there, and it'll take you directly to slide deck, and you can go ahead and download it, do whatever you want. However, I would recommend taking notes though as we go, just so you have something else to go on. All right. So we talked about, where are we at? Cap rate compression, right? I want you to remember cap rate compression because this is what a lot of people miss. Right? The three ways to do it is you increase value of properties, you increase gross income, which does not mean jack up the rent. It actually usually means increase occupancy first. Because if you have a vacant unit that just sits there, it's not doing squat, then if you just make more income, you can increase your NOI, which increases your value. Right? So increase occupancy, that always comes first. Then you can increase rent. But this is my personal approach is I always stay under market value because I want to make it easy to run. I don't want it to be a huge giant pain for me to operate and with people complaining all the time. I want it to be actually pretty simple to run. So I always stay under market rent at all times. I let the market drive itself up, and then I just follow a little bit behind, of course. You can also decrease expenses, which is going to be billing back stuff to the tenant is a really good way to do it. And I'll explain this more in detail on why this is actually a very good thing for both the tenant and the landlord, because it's just cheaper for everybody. You can also get rid of like stupid expenses. Like I see a lot of properties and they're paying like, $30,000 a year for one guy to go like clean the pond. It's like, dude, just fill in the pond with dirt. Like, what are you doing? So just weird stuff like that. You can also recompete out stuff. So if you got a trash company A versus B and you just haven't gotten a new quote in 5 years or whatever, it's like, well, you can go reduce your expenses that way. So just ask. Right? And the last one is compress the cap rate, which we just talked about, which basically just means make it easy to run. Right. And this is the best way to make it because this is like $0 to do. And also, by the way, every single one of these three value levers that I just talked about, every single one of them, $0 required to do. Or at the very least, if it's like clean the unit, if it's vacant and it just needs a little cleanup, just hire a maid. It's very, very cheap. So almost 9 times out of 10, you don't actually have to spend a lot of money, which means that the property can quote unquote heal itself. Like it will take the income from the property and just reinvest it back into the property. And you just do these three things. You make a bunch of money, and ideally you're buying at a discount. All right, hope everyone's learning. Just really trying to lock in here because we got pro forma, which is the future. So now we're going to try to like project, like what does it look like in the future, right? So we just talked about how to get to the future. So pro forma is Latin, by the way. I don't know why on earth they use it for future state, but I didn't take Latin in school, so that's probably the reason why. But we call it for different states. There's not just like one future. There's like multiple futures. I don't know if you've ever seen a Marvel movie or whatever, but it's like they're always talking about timelines. So it's like it's the same kind of thing here. So we're going to just simulate different points in time, different scenarios. So we're going to say BOY means beginning of year. You'll see that on a lot of financial spreadsheets typically. EOM, end of month, stuff like that. So just get used to that, kind of setup. And then I do something called a nuclear holocaust scenario, where it's like absolute worst case scenario is the property going to survive or we're going to go bankrupt, right? I just do that to just totally nuke the property just to make sure it's like going to hold up. And I always use a lot of color coding my stuff personally, just because when you got a lot of information out there and you got a lot of different numbers flying around, it's important to stay organized. So I would highly recommend that you do some sort of color coding system. I recommend these colors personally. That's just after, a couple hundred units worth of property and a couple $1 million of stuff. Like, what do I know? It's just like, this is what works for me. So I would recommend you do whatever colors you want. But if you do a bunch of bright colors in people's faces, it's going to just drive them nuts. All right, so here's a bunch of numbers that can change over time. You can have cap rate that you can change because you make it easier to run, which would be like adding management, standardize your rent. That's a huge one because tenants won't complain if they are, if you got tenant A who's paying 1,000 a month and tenant B is paying 800 a month, and it's the same unit, they're like, dude, why am I paying more? Like, what the heck's going on? So they're just going to give you a lot of issues. So just try to standardize everybody. It's fair for everybody too. Like I just said, if there's 2 units that are identical, why is one being rented for lower? So then you could actually increase rent that way, but you're doing it in a very fair way. You're not just jacking it up on everybody for no reason and being a crappy landlord. Like, you're actually doing a good job with it. So you just try to strive to standardize, basically. That's it. It's fair to everybody at the end of the day. All right. So we also got expenses here, and apologies. So with expenses, we got 5% per year is typically what you're going to see. And that's taxes and insurance can sharply increase over time too. So, or particularly the purchase, just because they reassess the property value and then it jumps up a lot, right? But everything else, we're just generally going to assume about 5% unless there's a good reason to assume otherwise. So here's what we were talking about with the utility bill back is that's something that can change over time, and that's an expense that you can reduce. And here's why that's good, and this is not bad for the tenant. It actually doesn't even matter for the tenant. But a tenant will use less electric if they are the one paying for it. I guarantee you that, right? Because otherwise they're just going to be wasteful with it at the end of the day. So if a landlord pays the utility bill, then you have $800 a month rent plus 200 utilities, for instance. So the landlord would end up getting $600 and the tenant would pay $800. If the tenant pays the utility bill, though, the landlord might be willing to drop the rent. And I'll explain that here in a second. Or at the very least, just not increase rent. So it'd be $700 a month rent plus $100 utilities, because again, the tenant's paying, or the utility bill will be lower because the tenant's more responsible. So the landlord would end up getting $700, but the tenant would end up paying $800. So I just want to point out here, you got $600 right here for the landlord receivable versus $700. But the tenant pays the exact same, right? You can tilt the scale towards the tenant, or you can tilt the scale towards the landlord. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's less cost for everybody. That is what's more important, because otherwise the only people that win is the monopoly, that is the utility company. Because it's not like you get a choice. And they will also Bitcoin mine. That is a huge reason why. So don't put it in your lease saying don't Bitcoin mine, because then you're going to put the idea in their head. Trust me, I've learned that one from experience. Hopefully I just saved you a couple $1,000 on this one slide. So, all right. So now we're going to use like the standard format that you will see a lot of other people use in their due diligence, the packets that they'll have on commercial property or multifamily property. But also, this is how I like to set everything up, because it's very, very organized and it's very standardized. So I got color coding and I got different scenarios from left to right. So that's our legend. We just talked about that a second ago. So this would be an example. Again, just look at the big categories here: gross, expense, net, cash flow, value. We already know that. We already practiced that stuff. We already know how it works, right? So I'm just assuming the blue stuff is from the, is actual data. Maybe yellow is stuff I got to go research, right? So now it gives me like a nice little to-do list. And I'm buying this thing for $250K, and at purchase, perhaps I lose money, right? Maybe I lose $8,000 in value, but it doesn't mean like I'm selling the property. So I didn't really have that as an actual loss. It just means the property is worth less than what I'm paying for. So that's assuming a current scenario, no change whatsoever. That's what the seller's got going on. That's what I'm, intending on buying. But maybe on day one, I'm going to make some changes immediately, right? So I'm assuming that I know what the tax bill is going to be, so I'm just going to guess it. And maybe that's because they haven't come out with the actual tax bill yet, and I'm just assuming it's like an increase of whatever. So maybe I'll fill that in, and I'll prove a couple things. I'll add management, so this 10% rate. I'll get rid of trash cans. It goes from $100 down to $0 because I got trash cans and dumpsters. That's kind of nutty. And then maybe I'll start getting the electric bill back to the tenant, right? To bill that the tenant. And because I did all this stuff, I just made it a lot easier for the next guy, so I can justify selling this at a 9% cap rate instead. Oh, by the way, notice there's not a huge difference, 241K value versus 239K value. So it's about the same, valuation, even after applying all these changes. So we didn't really increase the value, but we did, in fact, make it easier to go forward on this. So if we go forward 1 year, let's say our market rent, by the way, is $1,200-ish, and our rents for our tenants are way under that, like $200 under. So we're going to bump them up a little bit in order to get it closer to market rent, but they still have a killer deal. They're like $150 under market. That's 10% off. It's like you got a 10% off coupon for your rent. Like, what the heck? So they're getting a killer deal. They're not going anywhere. And then we are adding 5% value, or adding 5% for the expenses on taxes and insurance, for instance. Our trash can's already gone. Dumpster, maybe we'll add another 5%. Water, we'll bill that back to the tenant. Sewer, we'll bill that back to the tenant, right? So at the end of the day, our fair market value is going to jump up from 239 all the way up to like 500 in 1 year. And our tenants are under market value. This is assuming full occupancy. Actually, no, almost full occupancy. I'm sorry. Right? So like our tenants are getting a good deal. Like that's cool. And we did all this stuff. So we just cut out all the fluff that we didn't need. That was it. And just move numbers around. So let's say our market rent goes up again, 6%. Here's what we go to. We're going to standardize all the rent so people complain less, which means that we can get better management. So we'll do 9% for the management. And then because we did all that, then I get to call it like an 8.5% cap rate instead. So now we just went from 500K to 575K. But if you notice, most of the value was in year one. From day one to year one is like a double, right? So like doubles in value. Then after that, it goes up 14%. So it's most of the value on the stuff is in year one when you clean up shop, basically. And then if I wanted to look at it from like a nuclear scenario, let me pull this over to the side so you can see it. So if I wanted to look at it in a nuclear scenario, really what I'm looking for is, can I survive, right? So at negative $74 a month, yes, I can survive on that. So I can, just cut out Starbucks or whatever and then, pay for that. Now, that doesn't mean I should sell the property at that point in time. I should probably be smart and hold on to it. But I just want to make sure I'm not going to like hemorrhage money and go bankrupt, for instance. All right. So yes, it would survive a nuclear holocaust scenario. All right. So now we're going to talk about real fast on like why and how you should underwrite. So I do the level 1, 2, 3 system. That this isn't like a thing you can go Google. I just came up with the level 1, 2, 3 system, but it's like stupidly efficient. So level 1 is you ballpark everything, right? And you probably do a little bit of this mentally, but you just haven't like defined it as much as you should. So ballpark everything on level 1 underwrite. If it passes level 1 underwrite, then you move on to level 2 underwrite. And a level 2 underwrite would be estimating everything. So you're going to come up with as much ideas as you possibly can, like, okay, what should these things cost? But you don't have to like go spend a ton of time getting the actual numbers on it, but you should be as educated as you can on it. Then you're going to go into level 3, which is when you actually have the real numbers on stuff. That means you prove everything, you source it out, like you are ready to buy, right? But you don't need to do that off the start unless you're practicing and you're learning. So if you're learning, it is critical that you do all 3 levels till you get the experience, because otherwise you're going to get a really killer deal and you're going to miss it because you're not going to be quick enough or you're not going to be accurate enough because you never practiced. Because if it is a killer deal, you got to move quick on that, and you can't go practice 1,000 reps all at once. So do all 3 levels at the beginning, and that's how I define the levels: is ballpark, estimate, and prove. All right, so ballpark, I can do it in my head, or I can like do it on my phone, calculate it basically in like 30 seconds. That's how I typically do it for like level 1. So what does this look like exactly for level 1? For what goes into this, it's basically your property value, and then we just call it a 30 or 40% expense ratio, right? I'm just estimating stuff. And by the way, all the slides are available online here, so I'll give you a link here at the end, but you cannot normally navigate to it from the website. So you'll have to like take a picture of the QR code or whatever in order to get it. So your future value minus your current value equals your profit. That's pretty straightforward. Right. And then your level 2 underwrite, you're actually going to get the market research. You're going to go line item everything out. You're going to actually do a good job on it. Right. You're going to include your rehab too. Right. Because at the beginning, you might not know what the rehab is. And this is, by the way, this is stuff that works for multifamily. You obviously need to know the rehab if you're dealing with 1 unit. But if you got like 50 units you're buying, I promise you have enough cash flow that you can fix 1 unit if it comes offline. Right. So this is why this is a different ball game than like single families. The single families can work, but that's like either a rental or it's a fix and flip. But with multifamily, you're doing both. You are fixing the property while you're renting it. So for level 3, it is you're proving everything. So then you're getting all the sources to everything. You're getting quotes. You're getting unit by unit. You're figuring out what they're going to be rented at. Rehab unit by unit. You're counting for cash flow. You're doing everything. You got full market rent. 30 comps, dude, like every freaking comp in existence. Do a really solid job because you're about to buy potentially millions of dollars of stuff, which I know that might sound crazy. People are like, I could go out and buy $1 million thing in the next 2 months. Yes, you can. That like the first deal I bought that was a big deal was like straight to like was 950, right? And before that I did 2 single families. So it's like, yes, you can do it too. You can go straight up there. And again, 4 out of 6 of my business partners own more than 100 units in their first year. You can totally do it. And it was $0 out of their pocket. So, but yeah, you got to know your stuff though if you're going to do that. So get all the comps, every single comp in existence. Loan terms, we get everything quoted out. All right. So level 3 is like the bee's knees. Like you do everything. right? So this formula looks scary, but it's really simple if you look at it. So property profit equals future minus current minus rehab, right? Pretty simple, because I'm saying here's all the future gross OPEX and market cap rate minus the current gross OPEX and cap rate, right? That's not rocket science stuff to figure out. The difference is there might be a different OPEX in the future, or a different gross in the future, or a different cap rate in the future than there is right now. So that's why you do these two scenarios like that, and you subtract them, and you have your difference. And you also got to subtract out your rehab. I'm assuming all the cash flow is going to just handle unexpected issues, so I don't even account for that, right? If you notice, I didn't say squat about monthly cash flow because I don't even care about cash flow. The way I run properties, I just wait until the end, and I have a way higher return as a result. Assumes all cash flow handles unexpected issues, but man, if you really needed to, you could take the cash flow out. That's fine. And then you estimate your future gross by just looking at stuff online and just be pessimistic. So use the cheapest you find online. You can estimate OPEX and cap by gut feeling. So that's going to be basically using this table I got here. So this is a good starting point so that you can kind of go out and estimate some things. So I got a bunch of so I got like RV park and like, self-storage units in there. I haven't bought an RV park. I haven't bought self-storage units, but I know what the market cap rates are at. So you can go look up for a bunch of other comparables and come up with more accurate data. But if you were like looking at something, you're like, wow, I have no clue what this should be valued at, just do this table. So this slide right here is the best slide for you to immediately go out and estimate, is this a deal or not? So learn everything that's on this slide. This is the best one-stop shop on how to underwrite a deal in like 30 seconds. So I'm going to just drive that point home on that. Like this is the slide on it. Okay. That was a lot. I'm going to run through these concepts and quiz things first because I want to open a little more time for questions. So I don't need to like wait on people to answer and then do it. I'm just going to run through it a little bit first, right? And then we're going to be doing question time here in a second. So get ready on that. It's going to be pretty killer. So let's review here. Three main groups in a syndication is going to be your general partner, your limited partner, and your debt partner. Remember, your debt partner is not actually a partner. They're just like a lender or like a bank or something. It's just a term that they use. What percent return are you getting if you're only a general partner? Is you're getting an infinite return because you got no money in the deal. And that's me. I get infinite returns on everything. I don't put squat into the deal, but I do put my time in. And as a result, I get paid pretty well for my time, at least. I think I get paid well. What are the three types of leverage? Is going to be your capital, your time, and your skill, right? So I'm trying my damnedest to use all three of those all the time, but there's other types as well, such as brand, content, relationship, information, code, process, optimization, resource. Like there's a ton, like, dude, just use whatever you got at your disposal. I guarantee you everybody here is good at something, right? Just figure out what that thing is, use skill leverage to take it to your advantage. Or somebody, use that relationship to your advantage. A buyer, great. That's how you're going to win, right? Maybe you know something somebody else doesn't. Maybe you know how to code, etc. So leverage is how you get to where you want. Why does it make sense to partner with people though? Is because of skill and you will be a more efficient total. Overall, you will make slightly less money, but you will make more as a group. And that is the key. And you'll do it a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. All right. What is NOI? What is OPEX? NOI is going to be your gross minus your expense. That's annual. And your OPEX is your expense divided by your gross. And that's a percentage. So again, that's just saying what's your net income a year and what's your like reverse profit margin. That's basically all that is. And then what is cap rate? Cap rate is NOI divided by price minus rehab. I'm sorry, that's a clerical error. That's my mistake. That should be price plus rehab, right? That's my bad. I'll fix that. So so that's basically just saying like, what is your rate of return on the property, right? Also, it can be done with value as well. All right, what's the difference between price and value? Price what you buy for, value is what it's worth, right? So if you buy a stock, you are paying the price of that, but not necessarily the value is not necessarily the same as the price. So that's like actual like stock investors, which I used to be a registered investment advisor, by the way. So like I get to say this. It's like, yes, I did all the stuff that goes into doing due diligence for a stock. Day trading does not account for value of the freaking stock. It just is an estimation of stuff. It doesn't do anything to actually determine it, right? Value is what is it actually worth? Like what are people willing to buy it for, or what should they be willing to buy it for, right? Assume property A and B are the exact same, but A takes more work, then A should be worse. I'm sorry, but B takes more work. Man, I apologize for getting clerical errors in here, guys. So, yeah, basically the harder property should be getting the higher cap rate at the end of the day. Because if I'm doing more work, I need to get paid more, basically. 3 value levers. increase gross, decrease expense. Again, another clerical error. Geez. And then compress your cap rate. Everybody forgets about compressing the cap rate. And then 3 identical units all rent for $8, $9, and $1,000. If market rent is $1,050, you should probably set everything to $1,000 a unit if you're going to really crank it up. I personally would probably do 900. Just depends. But you cannot, like, you should not exceed market rent just because you're going to deal with a lot more issues, and also you're the issue of why the U.S. economy is inflating. So don't do that. But yeah, you can make a lot of money by not causing issues for other people, basically. So. But yeah, if they're all the exact same unit, like, why are they not rented for the same? So that is what I call internal comping. That is the easiest way to spot opportunity on a rent roll without even doing any research. All right. 2 easy ways to compress cap rate is going to be add management, standardize rent. And then the last level, or the last item is 3 levels of underwrites. Just ballpark everything, estimate everything, and then prove everything. All right. I got this nifty free valuable tool I just made yesterday. It may or may not have some bugs, but I think it's pretty baller, because what you can do with it is you literally just type in an address and it will spit out a bunch of really useful facts, like what are the laws in a local area, what's the disaster frequency, what's the radon levels, what's the population, the trends, what's the flood zone map, what's the Google map, what's the Zillow, like everything, like a lot of stuff you need. And honestly, I will take feedback. If you guys have ideas, tell me what you want to see on here. I will add that in there for free. It is 100% free. It's right there on the QR code. Like, please use it. Like, I think that is a killer thing to do, because it's like, why would you want to wholesale a property or buy a property or whatever if you don't know what you're getting in for? Because I've had somebody bring me something before. And they said, let's go wholesale this park. And it was in Indiana. And it was like, dude, you will go to prison. So it's like, just look it up. So he didn't know how to do it. So I was like, I'm going to go make this. So yeah, please go use this and give me feedback on it. Again, that is the only cost I'm asking for everybody. So I did make a practice problem as well. So feel free to use this. This is like a practice problem where you can fill in Excel calculator and a bunch of other stuff. And I gave like a little fake scenario, basically, so you can try to pull out some stuff. So again, just pay me feedback. That's it. But if you guys want this slide deck, then it is right up. Well, it can't go that high, but that is the URL. You cannot get to that URL through the website normally, so you should probably just take a picture of this page. And yeah, .com/training/bootcamp/FC. So questions. This was a lot. This is a fire hose. And we're on the minute. Oh, dude, money. We nailed it. On the minute. So what do we got? This was I'm glad I was able to get a lot of value out of you guys. Absolutely thank John Johnson here, because I was like, hey man, can I do this? I think this is going to be pretty good, and I think this is great. Like, this is exactly what REI Rev is all about. I mean, I love just jumping in here, and I like talking to people. I've learned from people. There's so many people in this community. It's awesome. You guys really need to you jump in here at random times throughout the week, honestly, because that's like when the real deals get happen. If you don't believe me, I've partnered with people in REI Rev. Like, I've met a lot of business partners in REI Rev before. So this community is like legitimately baller. So yeah, just make sure to like give feedback. Tell him if you liked it. Tell me if you didn't like it. Whatever. And give info. So yeah, what questions we got? So pop it over here. Trying to see how I can bring this up on a stage here. I'll just start reading from chat until we can figure out how to get people up on stage here. How much time should you commit to level 1, 2, and 3 underwrites? I would say for level 1, if you practice it enough, you can probably do it in about 30 seconds. A level 2, you could probably do in about 20 minutes. And then a level 3 underwrite will probably take you at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. So that's a good point. I'll include that in the slide next time and say, like, hey, this is how long it should probably take. But yeah, level 1 underwrite is like the absolute bee's knees, because you can just breeze through a deal in like 30 seconds. So yeah, I would really recommend practicing on your level 1 underwrites. With the community, have your personal call recordings. Yes. Yeah, it'll be available. It's also on the stream for REI Rev, so go to REI Rev's YouTube and you'll be able to see it. Actually, John threw it in the chat. So what else we got here? Where's the link? I will tab back to it. There you go. It's probably more valuable. What else we got here? Can I invite to speak? Oh, I can. Okay, yeah. So if you raise your hand in the chat or whatever, we'll bring you up on here. Do we practice here? I got a lot of people here asking stuff. All right, Kyle.
I misspelled that weird. Man, that's embarrassing. But do we practice with what's on market? Like where do we find these deals? Where would one even begin to practice or look for these?
Yeah, man. So I actually have done probably 70 to 80% of my stuff on market. Right. So why multifamily is a little different than like one unit at a time, in my opinion, is it's a lot more work. So there's less people willing to take it on, or there's less people that know how to take it on. Because of that, there's a lot more opportunities sitting out there on the market. So you can actually get away with buying pretty much everything on market. So because as I showed in earlier on, it's like we bought a thing for in that example problem, it was buying for 250, but then we made it worth 500 just because we saw something as a group or whatever. We saw something that they did. I'll tap back that slide, but that's gonna be a lot of slides to go. Oh boy, hold on. There goes a lot of slides. Where's that? I think I remember which one I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
If I find it all. Sorry. Oh, here it is. Yes. All right. Yeah. So right here on the slide, we're able to bring that value up to like $500,000. So if this was sitting up on the market, people just might not want to take it on, or they might be using like the wrong mentality, and they're like, "Huh, it's 4 units and 60K a unit is the way to value it." It's like that's not how to value it, bro. Like you got to do it the math, through math. Like that is how you do these. Like you do not do it off of comparables like the Smith family, right? You do it through actual like analysis. So you can make money on this even if it's on market, dude. You could even offer them higher than market value if it's listed or market list price. So if it's listed for 250, you could go get it for 270 and still make money. The issue is you're not gonna be able to like wholesale stuff like that because people are gonna look at like what's it currently worth, but you can certainly make a ton of money buying stuff like that, right? So you can just kind of skip that whole process and just go straight to ownership in that case, and still make a lot of cash in the process. So $250,000 in a year is not bad for a group of presumably like. I mean, you could tackle something small, like 4 units, you could tackle yourself. I would always recommend, though, do work with a partner. If it's any consolation, I've actually sold everything except for one more unit in my current primary house. I've sold everything that I've owned personally because I don't like working just by myself. I really like working with partners because it is more efficient for everybody, as I talked about with skill leverage. So I would highly recommend you always buy with a partner. The other reason is you can't take a day off. Right. So if you want to go on vacation and your tenant's got problems, too bad. You're answering the phone. It's like that sucks on vacation. So that's why I would also try to have a partner because at least you can have somebody else that can answer the phone while you're out and vice versa. So
That's nice.
but
And
yeah,
then
on market is the move, man. So you can do that, and yes, you can practice on that stuff right now out on the market. So um, so they put all their information out there. So if you ever call a single family seller up, I guarantee you they don't just willy nilly like, oh yeah, dude, like here's the rent, here's the OpEx, here's all the expense. Like that just never happens. But if you go on market, you can go on Crexy right now and you can find pretty much any property and it will tell you all the numbers. So you don't even have to call the agent. We can underwrite most things before we even call the agent. So it's great in our practice. So highly would recommend going out and doing that for everybody here. And I gave the practice problems so you can practice going and doing it. So
and
yeah.
did you have like a calculator on your $0landlord.com?
Yeah, not yet because I'm working on it and it's going to be insanely good when it does release. So and it'll be free. So but yes, there's a practice problem for the calculator, and I do have the solution in there, which is technically a calculator, but that is something I'm working on right now, which is to give like the omni calculator of all calculators that is going to be better than like anything that's ever been currently published. So it's
Oh man.
I just need to make sure it's like insanely good quality before I push it out. So but yes, that is coming soon.
Gotcha. And then I have one last question for you, John.
Mhm.
Give me an example of one of the worst deals you've ever seen versus one of the best deals you've ever seen.
Okay, worst deals. Well, I don't want to like bash because like all three of us didn't like we're all newer to this type of stuff, but the very first deal I bought, the person that was the majority owner, um, So it was weird because one of us, I was at 12% ownership. One of them was at 51% ownership, and then one was at 37% ownership. So you already know by default, it's like not all three people are going to work the same amount, right? Because they're so far different percent ownerships. And the reason why I thought that one went a little weird is, again, we were all learning together. I just didn't realize we were all learning together because I thought the guy that was in lead was a lot more experienced than he actually was. So that's on me for not doing my due diligence on him. So I don't fault him on that whatsoever because he was right. He had bought an RV park before, but he was a limited partner on an RV park, which is not the same as actually operating an RV park. So that was on me. That one was a little stressful for everybody because it wasn't like an insane profit margin, and again, people didn't really all three of us didn't really have a good chemistry together. We'd have like good chemistry like one-on-one of the three, but three as a group didn't really work super well. So but no, it was like I've not lost money on any deal except one where I bought like a house it was like a really small ready house. It was like 40K and I resold it for like 39. So it was like, okay, I lost $1,000, but whatever, So every other like multifamily deal has always been profitable. So it's really hard to screw it up as long as you look for it at the acquisition. I got one that I'm selling right now that's close to break even. So that would be the second worst deal I've done. From a financial sense, but generally you can make a ton of stuff on it. And I love talking about the case study one at the beginning where it's like the 335K purchase on a 250K value. Like, dude, we overpaid by $80,000 just because I was like, hey bro, can you do 100% seller finance? Right. You don't know until you ask. And the answer was yes. So, yeah. And we got into that for like literally squat. It was awesome. And it still is awesome. So, we're actually about to sell that right now. So, yep.
Nice.
But yeah, good questions, man. So cool. What else we got? Show up your hands and I'll drag you up on stage. A deep dive on the deal. John, you're talking about the one I just sold. That was in January-ish, I think. So, but yeah, no, that one was good. So I made 80 and we like as a group, I think we made like, I don't know, 400-ish. Actually, maybe it was a little higher now I think about it because it was 80. I had 12%. So, but yeah, so it was okay for initial one on that. Yeah, seller financing though too, by the way, is baller. That is that is generally the best way to buy is with some structure of seller finance because you can just avoid the bank altogether. So Anthony's asking, am I on or are you on social media? How can we watch more of you? So REI Rev on Mondays for the next 4 Mondays, and then also I do have a personal community that is the same content basically because again I'm just trying to build people up. But I hang out in REI Rev all the time. Always happy to talk about it. This place is great. So yeah, John's blitzing me over that. So it was an okay deal because there's a lot of variables and stress going on there, John. Emotions were high for everybody because I was fine with it because I got infinite money. So of course I wasn't sweating it. I had infinite return, but everybody else was like, oh boy, I hope this works. And it's a little silly if you like doubled your gross income to wonder if your property value went up. So yes, it definitely went up. So yes, terrible. There is a website. It's in my bio. If you click on my bio, you'll have the website on there. It's $0 Landlord. So, and also make sure everybody please like DM or at John. Just say like thanks if you found this valuable. If you didn't find it valuable, please go fill out the form and let me know what I can change. DM me directly if you want. So, so yeah, no, I think this is great. I was talking to John. I was like, dude, this is gonna kind of be like a, REI Rev's kind of like a publisher in a way, right? So I think it's pretty cool that we can get extra value out there and just it builds everybody. So really want everybody to learn as much as possible. So I swear there's as you know, I didn't charge any money. So Lord just give me feedback and that's it. So what else we got here? Okay. Hardest issue you've had to deal with, or Pat, I'll just drag you up if you want. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yep. All right, Brian, what you got, man?
Hey man, awesome slide deck and great description. I just wanted to compliment you. And I'm a huge advocate for owner finance. All my
Yep.
deals that I've done have all been owner finance deals. Like my
Very good.
personal house, my duplex, and now like I really like originally I wanted to go after like like really big, like 100-door units, and I've just it's been difficult because like just to have that conversation about having the owner financing, to enter into it has been a little bit more difficult to like find because again most of those like 50-door 100-door units, they're not owned
Yeah,
by one person, they're owned by
sure.
multiple people. Like every time everyone that I've went after so far in Orlando and Tampa area, they've all been owned by like pretty much an LLC that is a group of maybe five or more people, kind of
Sure.
thing. And now, but I did have a conversation because I was driving the other day, and there was a for sale by owner for a like 13 unit mobile home here, like in like.
Hey, dude.
And so I actually stopped in. I was like, oh hey, and then the owner was there, and so right now we're negotiating like terms right now, like basically. But he's open to
Very good.
owner finance. But he's like, hey, look, I'm 84. I'm not a spring chicken. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. And so I obviously did the offer more. I offered him 20% more. And but he's a stickler on the down payment, and so now we're negotiating the down payment. And I'm thinking
Yeah,
about maybe going after a partner for the down payment aspect, but also too, like it's kind of my baby. Like I've already had two conversations with them, one in person and one over the phone, and so
sure.
but like any advice, like what else could
Yeah.
I offer him in lieu of the down payment?
Yeah, so actually I'll cover a lot of this on I think next Monday in here slash tomorrow in my thing, but so boot camp day 2 covers like acquisition negotiation, and it's exactly like, and then day 3 is like how to structure the deal. So what you were talking about right now is like a prime candidate for it, and it's really good. So here, go ahead and give you like a little sneak peek, for instance, what you can do. So first off, when it comes to partners, like I cannot stress this enough. I tell everybody the exact same thing. It's like if it's your first deal, you should literally be willing to get paid 1%, just so you can say you've done it and you understand what you're talking about, right? That is because the experience is far more valuable, because the cost isn't the 99% of profit or whatever you missed out on. The cost is not being able to go do a second, third, fourth, fifth, 300th whatever deal, right? You just got to get in the first one. Now, hopefully you don't do 1%, but just take whatever you can get, I guess is what I'm saying. So, um, people that are less greedy make more money. It's so weird. I had a like $100 million like seller that I bought a house from, and I got like a coffee with him, and I was like, "What's your number one piece of advice?" And that's exactly what he said, and I implemented it. And then I bought like 300 units like that year. So I swear that is the best thing I could possibly say. Make sure you partner with people that you like though too. So that's as far as partnerships. Now, as far as the seller finance bit, here's what you can do, and this is what we'll talk about on next Monday slash the Monday after as well. So if he's willing to finance, say, I don't know, 30% or whatever, right? Let's just say he's only willing to do finance 30%, and he has to have a 70% down payment or something crazy high like that. What you can do is you can do a bank in first position as a lender for 70% of the purchase price, and then you'll have the seller in second position for 30% of the purchase price. This is not the same as a Morby method deal, which is like how to get blacklisted and basically commit mortgage fraud. This is how to buy a property with what's known as seller carryback. So a seller is carrying a second position. Now, a lot of lenders won't let you do 0% down payment, but there's some ways around that, which I coined the term the Bartlett method, because I bought with negative down payment multiple times. So that's something you can only do with mobile home parks, though. Um, so yeah, I'll talk about that more in detail later. And also, if you want, you can DM me on that. I'm happy to help. So for free, I'm not going to bill you or anything. So and then you were talking about like, oh, it's your baby. I generally structure, and this is something I talk about on day 3. I structure stuff so there's like different roles and responsibilities matrix. So the person that finds the deal and acquires the deal has already done a lot of work. So they don't have to do as much work later. So other people can go do that work, but you can still make it 50-50 or whatever percent of workload you need. So don't be afraid to bring in other partners, but I would not assign the deal to the LLC that somebody else is a partner of until you're like 100% confident with that guy as a partner, right? So, so if you have it, go ahead and look for partners. You don't, trust me, from experience as like one of the top 200 mobile home park buyers in the US, you do not want to own a mobile home park just by yourself. You would be
I
making a
don't. Yeah, yeah,
grave mistake. Yeah,
yeah.
you
No, no.
have to have a partner. Get somebody, for God's sakes. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I what I have structured right now, and again, he's not even asking that much. I mean, for the space, because it's not like in Tampa or Orlando. It's south of Ocala. So it's like in the middle of kind of nowhere.
Yeah.
But the thing is he has cleared land, and I know that we can expand it, and that's my biggest reason, and
Gotcha.
the units that are there right now are really old. Like he bought them in the 70s when he started the thing. So, and there's
Yeah.
only 13 of them, but he's got 4 acres, of cleared land. And so it's all buildable for plots. So that's what I'm looking at is like, how do I expand that? And again, raising the capital, like with a partner too, to where like, okay, how much is it going to cost us, to run power and water and a plot, and then
Sure.
do we do our own units, or do we do, like
Yep.
drive on units, kind of thing. And that's where I'm, like I've been kind of wrestling in my head of like which one's going to benefit us, long term, I guess
Sure.
is kind of where I'm at. So
Yeah,
and
it depends on how much workload you want to take on. There's not an easy answer for that because if I said, "What's the ideal number of hours per week to work for the rest of your life?" You're like, "Dude, what kind of question is that?" Because it depends. It's like for me, I don't like working like an absolute dog all the time. It gets old, right? I mean, it's like I like working a lot and I spend a lot of time working, but some weeks I just don't want to be doing a whole lot of stuff, or I want to go work on some other venture or whatever. So there's not like you got to go work 80 hours a week. But I can tell you this: if you own the units, you'll be liable for all the maintenance, which means you have to coordinate more maintenance, which means it eats up more time. So sometimes it actually makes sense not to own the units and just own the land, and that's called a tenant-owned home, is when they
yeah,
own just the home.
yeah,
And that's a lot easier to manage. So you may have a significantly higher dollar an hour, but you have less dollar. So it's just whatever you want on the trade-off. The nice thing is, remember we talked about cap rate compression. You can sell it for a lower cap rate. So your value of the park actually doesn't change that much if you do it. But now you have a higher dollar an hour. So it is usually advised to let the tenants own the homes. And then if you currently own the homes, it's actually for you to also just sell or finance them off to the tenants. So you don't even own them at all. So there's a lot of ways with that. I'm more than happy to go into further detail on that. We do on Wednesdays we do a deal review, and that's exactly the type of stuff we talk about. It's like, hey, here, let's go break this deal down, figure out what's the best way to do it. And if you ever see me here on REI Rev, just hit me up, man. I love talking about this stuff all the time. So I got a saying, which is like, if you can't find your business partners, build them. So it's like, that's exactly kind of what I'm doing here. Is like, okay, like, I want more business partners, so I got to go build them, which means like, yeah, I got to go put in thousands of hours and I go teach a bunch of random people stuff that they're probably never gonna come back and come knocking, but every now and then one does, and that all makes it all worth it. Or I hear the success stories. They're like, you helped me close my first whatever. And I'm like, good, that's what I like to hear. Makes me sleep a little better at night. So
love it. No, thank you for the
yeah,
info,
man. Yeah, for the parks, there's not one solution on that, but run, just like we were talking about pro forma, there's different scenarios. Go ahead and run different scenarios. And if you send me an Excel calculator, I will absolutely review it. So
all right, cool. Thanks. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I didn't want to eat up all the time on the answer on that one. Pat, I see you're up here, bro. What you got?
Oh, nothing, brother. Someone invited me up randomly.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
let's see if we got any other.
appreciate
yeah,
you doing this, man. Appreciate you doing this greatly, man. Honestly, I credit you because wholesaling residential, it didn't pique my interest. It got really boring for me. So when I met you
Yeah.
those months back, dude, I was like, wow, what's capable with little money is just fascinating. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
man. Yeah, no, you can literally do it for $0, and you can even pay more than what the property's for sale for technically, and still make money. Which means you can do it on market. So you don't even need to buy. If you're buying the property, you don't even need to buy it from somebody else that's a wholesaler. Now, what a lot of times, and here's the cool thing: if you do decide to wholesale multifamily stuff, which I would recommend just buy it because wholesaling gets weird with it. But if you do wholesale it, what you can do is you can actually add value to the deal by structuring it better. Right. So if it's listed as all cash and you get it on seller financing terms, like you can make it worth more, but at the same price. Right. So it could be the same list price, but now all of a sudden you got 100% seller finance. Like, yeah, you could go wholesale that thing all day. Right. So yeah. And then the next guy runs his calculations and it's all math based. So it's really easy to figure out. It's like, well, does this make sense logically or not? But man, I hate it though when, single family stuff, just I get lit up when it's, I'm selling a property to an end buyer and that's like a not investor. And it's just like, they're complaining about everything. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing? so yeah, man. But yeah, different schools of thought there for sure. So just kind of keep trying different things until you figure out what you like. And for me, it's multifamily, and and ownership. So that's just what I found. So yeah, man, happy to help on the search. So glad to help.
Thanks, brother.
Yes, sir. Anthony, what you got, man?
Just a quick question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So what would be a reason why somebody would list a building way overpriced? Like if you're running numbers and numbers are way off, it should be selling for about 2 million and they're asking like 4.5. What would be the reason why? Because everything, like what would be the thought process behind listing it, for double the price or where it should be?
Yeah. So just so I can understand your question again, you're asking why would a seller list it for twice of its current value?
Correct.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't. Most people don't want to buy above current value. Now, what you can do is, I see Jay's even saying stuff, which is like start high and meet in the middle. That's fine. So, like, let's just say something is objectively worth 2 million, and they got it listed for 4 million. They're gonna sit on the market for a minute. So I'll be like, hey, bro, your thing is worth 2 mil. What I can do is I can give you 2.4 if you do like really good seller financing terms. But like, it's not going to sell at 4 mil if it's that much of a difference. So they're not usually like, I use the term like on crack. It's like they're not that much on crack usually, so it's that much of a difference. But what you will see is you'll see these residential listers that are used to listing single family homes. Then they get into like the one lead that's like a multifamily property, and they list it for like 3 times the amount it should be, and then they just sit on the market for 6 months. It's like, dude, you just wasted everybody's time. So, I do see a couple of those every now and then, and they just have no clue what they're doing. So I see a lot of wholesalers make the same mistake too. So if you were like passionate about wanting a wholesale multifamily, like everything I just talked about here is exactly how to do it. I mean, I got more days worth of stuff, but like it's the same methodology. I would just recommend owning instead of wholesaling because you don't want to be the car salesman that has never owned it because you're gonna have a hard time wholesaling that. So because your type of buyers are usually groups. They're not like one person. And the reason why that matters is if you wholesale a single family to a investor, that's one person buying it. That's one person's worth of like negative reasons to why not to buy it. Versus if you wholesale a multifamily property, the only person buying that is probably a group of like 3 or 4 or maybe more. And they're going to come up with a lot more reasons. And there's more reasons because there's more stuff, right? So that's why it's a lot harder to wholesale that. And it's not saying you can't do it. So it's just, I would recommend just skip the wholesale stuff. Just go ahead and buy a one. And then when you bought so much stuff you don't want to buy anymore, then you can wholesale. So,
When it comes to financing, my biggest hurdle right now is credit score. And this is me pushing single family. I've been trying to
sure.
get, loans for rehab and all that. And I'm really struggling because my credit score has gone down recently. I'm like at 620, 625.
Sure.
So I mean, when it comes to that, is it similar when you're talking about a 4-unit property versus
Yeah.
like a single family home?
Dude, here's my advice on it is you can always work more, but you can't always like dig yourself out of a hole as easily, right? So if you find yourself, because everybody's got a hole, whether it's financial or this like social or skill or whatever, right? So it's like everybody's got like issues and benefits and skill sets, whatever. When it comes to financial stuff though, like just take less profit. Like I swear the best freaking advice I've ever gotten is just be less greedy. And it's not that I'm a greedy person, but that's how it was described to me. It's like literally it's like, dude, if you make 10% of the profit, but you don't have to pay squat, good. Just do that. So you got some flips going on, you should be offering equity chunks. Hey bro, you want to fund the whole thing and it's no risk to you. And then, you take 70% of the profit. I don't have to put anything in and then I get 30%. Just do that. I promise you'll have a lot more deals. And also the nice thing is, you'll be working for like less dollar per deal, but it's not your money. It's not your risk anymore. It's actually somebody else's risk. And because that's your issues right now, it seems like you're worried about you have a risk of like too much bills paid or whatever, so it's like, get rid of the risk, get it off your plate, but you have to pay something in advance, or in exchange, which is less profit. And I see a lot of people do this is they over leverage and they take on too many projects at once. And then they have too many, they have like too much debt in their name. And then they get screwed up and then they potentially go bankrupt. It's like, you didn't have to do that. Just do equity split with people and just do no money in, as the name says, $0 landlord, right? Just do that. It's safe, it's scalable, you can do it infinitely, and you can refine it so it's worth your time even more in the future. Because again, like I was showing on like the first slide where it was like $3,500 an hour. It's like, that's a pretty $dollar an hour. Like I'm proud of that one, right? That's pretty efficient. It's just like, I might not have a million hours of work, but at least the time I am working, it's pretty solid. So,
I definitely get that.
So.
I love that answer.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. I couldn't. Yeah, I love that. Definitely.
Yeah, seriously, I would say though that's probably the solution. It would just be my personal 2 cents. I'm not claiming to be like the financial advisor for this particular type of thing. That's not like my super duper background. But did investment advising at one point, but not the same. But yeah, I would recommend just take less profit, get out of the hole, and then reset. That's exactly what I do. And you're still gonna make money in the process too. So
3 months ago, when I first started making offers, it was all, I was trying to get funding, but now I'm just looking at wholesaling. Just it's really my only option right now because I couldn't get funding for deals. So that makes
yeah,
sense to get an equity partner and just
yes.
have them finance the deal. I get that.
Dude,
Yeah.
that is the part that everybody misses, and because they don't usually know how to talk to buyers, because buyers like to talk to buyers, right? And that's why I'm trying. This is like that is honestly that's probably the best way I can put it. Is what I'm trying to teach is the critical gap of knowledge needed in order to talk with a buyer as a buyer, right? If you know how the hell to think like a buyer, you can fully converse with them. Otherwise, you're just selling them on stuff. But when you can fully converse with them because you actually are understanding the issues like they do, because you will be doing the issues like they will, that's when you actually make the leap onto the other side of the coin. You're on the same side of the coin as them, and that's when you start doing profit split. And wholesalers are typically in like a what's in it for me, which there's nothing wrong. Like everybody in the entire planet works like that. Or what's in it for me, I'm doing something for money, versus when you're on the same side of the coin as the person you're working with is very different. So there's a lot more trust. So I always use the phrase of like, bet on my greed. So it's like a bet that I want to make money, dude. Like, what am I trying to not make money? Like I'm looking to lose money on this? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like if you make money, I make money. Let's work together. So, and there's no cap too. You can just keep running the property forever and make, a lot more. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
man.
love that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Who else we got here? Jay, you want to come up on the stage, bro? Invite you to speak. And also just clarification, I see somebody in the chat was asking. It is an REI Rev here on Mondays. The ones that's going consecutive this week is just in my personal Discord server. So, but come in here, it's free in REI Rev on Mondays for the next 4 more Mondays. So there's 5 lessons total. Today was day 1. So yep, tune in same time next week. So then we're gonna really start getting into like some pretty cool concepts, but I just had to get all the boring crap out of the way on day 1, basically. So, but yeah, Jay, what you got, bro?
It's a very base question. I asked earlier, but I think I miswrote it. So I do a lot of my learnings by listening to people have conversations with, different varieties of buyers, sellers, etc. And I was wondering, for your community, are you going to provide phone call recordings where you do acquisitions/dispositions? So like seller side and investor side, do negotiations, both ends,
Yeah.
like with buyers.
Yeah, I cover negotiations on day 2. It'll be next Monday here. So with negotiations, there's actually a really good book. It is on the website if you go on there. It's free, so don't get me copyright striked, but it's up there. It's like the #1 book for negotiations. I would recommend it, which is HBR Guides to Negotiation. I would read books more and practice rather than listening to calls. I know that's how you say you learn. So as far as what I'm going to try to do for my community stuff too, which I try to do this in REI Rev all the time, which is because I love talking to people in here too. So if you see me in here, hit me up. Is doing almost like a Sherpa program is what I call it. So it's like just, picking 1 or 2 people that are just expressing a lot of, interest on learning stuff and that are self-learners, and then just kind of like taking them under a wing and like, hey, now we're going to go over here and practice this, or like I'll give it little assignments and stuff. So, yeah, as far as some other features and stuff, just try to find like a mentor, I suppose that's not really like exclusive to any particular community. So I'm trying not just like promo my stuff. Like REI Rev is honestly like I spend more time in REI Rev than anywhere else. So, yeah, but, read that book, HBR Guide to Negotiation. The link is on the website. That is very, very solid. And, as far as call reviews too, you could probably record your own, and then if you get a transcript of it or even like a summary bullet point, and then you just throw it in like a chat and be like, hey, can somebody review this or give me some feedback on it? I bet you get a lot of feedback on that. So I would try to do it yourself. So try to be your own coach first. So
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
yep. Alex was asking, what is the book? It is HBR Guides to HBR here. I'll just show on the website here. So here's landlord. It's right under resource. Boom, right there. Sorry that this website looks like crap, but I don't really care about making it look pretty right now. I care about it being functional. So I'm going to upload a bunch of other stuff on here. It's going to be free, but if you click on here, it will take you to the book link, and that book is solid. So what I will talk about next week on that particular book is actually, I would have that on my desk every day when I was working at my W-2, which was managing a ton of money for the government, because we'd have to negotiate with like Boeing and Lockheed and all these big contractors all the time. And I would literally draw out 7 elements tool. Let me see if I can find this. 7 element. I don't know what that is. Negotiations. Good enough, probably. Well, basically, I would draw out. Here's the 7 elements, right? Interest, options, criteria, alternatives, commitments, communication, relationship. So I would draw out every single one of those in a box, and I'd fill in the boxes. And I'm like, okay, what are their interests? What are their options? What are their criteria? What are their alternatives? And literally plan it out like that. And I swear, every like, whether it's like 8, 9, 10 figure deal or whatever for the government, or whether it's for my personal stuff, like a 7 or 8 figure deal for real estate, like if it's a serious negotiation, I would every single time write that out. And then it's like, here's exactly where all the facts are on the negotiation. So that's why I think that book is really, really good, as it goes over that, and it has like that little tool in there. So, and it's not as simple as like, oh, I understand what the word interest means. Like, dude, you don't understand when it comes to negotiations. You got to really understand how it applies. So, it's worth the book. Don't skim the book. But yeah, that is like top 5 books I always recommend to people. That's one of them. So, yep, free on the website. Don't copyright strike me. I don't know where I got that PDF. I got it free for somewhere at one point. So. Cool. What else we got here? Recommend the 4 others. $100 million offers, Alex Ramosi. $100 million offer leads, Alex Ramosi. Finite and Infinite Games, which is it Dale Carnegie? I don't remember. I don't remember the author's name on that one. Essentialism, and then it would be HBR Guide to Negotiation. So. Yep. All right. What else? Are we able to send you a deal in order for you to take a look at the numbers? Yes, that is deal review on Wednesdays. That's the idea. So I just keep it a little more organized, because I get a lot of DMs on like, hey, can you look at my thing? It's like, dude, I'll go over the thing, but I just want to teach a bunch of other people about the thing at the same time. So yeah. And if I ever jump in and you guys are in REI Rev here, feel free to pitch me the whatever. So. Alex Crespo, you were asking, have I ever used a VA loan for the first property? Believe it or not, I've actually literally never used my VA loan, which is tragic. So, yeah, so because I've been doing fix and flips the whole time in my personal residence. So I would like fix the house I'm living in while I'm living in it. And I've done that 3 times. I can tell you it sucks. Don't try to do that. It's a good way to save money and make a lot of money, I guess. But yeah, because of that, the properties I would buy would usually be not like mint condition, and VA would not approve them. So that's the reason why. I would highly recommend, though, if you do have a VA loan, or if you aren't VA loan qualifiable, at the very least, go get a conventional loan and do like, or FHA, and do like 3.5% down. Do as little money down in the deal. Use capital leverage, like we were talking about earlier on. Like, that is my biggest regret, is that I did not do a VA loan on my very first house, because it's probably cost me at least $500,000. Like that's how serious it was. It's like over 2-3 years ago or whatever. $500,000 lost because the trickling effect of not having 20K liquidity, because I have a really good annual rate of return for myself. So, and then I've missed out on opportunities because I just didn't have enough money. Because I was like, well, I could have funded that. I could have bought it myself, whatever. And because I missed out on like having 20K of liquidity, because I didn't do like, 2.5% down or whatever I could have done at the time. I should have done that, and I didn't. So I tell all my friends and everybody that looks to buy any house ever, it's like, do as max debt as possible. Dave Ramsey, right? He's always like, oh, bad debt. Dude, he's talking to the people that have credit card debt. He's not talking to the people that are using debt for like a good reason. And I don't want to sound like, Robert Kiyosaki or whatever. It's like, that's exactly it, dude. Like, you got to do maximum debt leverage as much as possible at the beginning in order to get a maximum return, but don't be stupid about it. Like, you are totally liable for that loan. So if it's a good deal, use leverage. Don't go blow a bunch of money in credit cards or whatever. So that's bad. So anyway, that's my take on VAs is yeah, exactly. Like Tanya was saying, they're really, really strict on it. So what you can do, and here's something that I am probably going to start doing here shortly. There's a really cool website called Roam. It's like Roam Properties, like ROAM Properties. Yeah, dude. So with Roam.com. So you buy VA loan assumable properties, and it's such a clever business model because it just pulls all of the properties that are on the MLS right now that have VA loans. So then their whole business model is like go use a buyer's agent basically to go buy the property, but they'll even finance in second position the remaining equity of the seller. So you literally get in the deal for very little down, and you have a killer interest rate, and you can just assume it. You don't have to be a veteran to assume a VA loan. So that's a really good model too, especially if you have a little more liquidity and you just want like lower interest rate. Like do Roam. I haven't used them yet, but it's a genius idea of like they just are a Zillow for Zillow. It's like very, very clever. So, but yeah, you can assume a loan too. So that's a fun way. All right, cool guys. I got one more and then I'm pop off here. What else we got? All right, next question gets it. How many years of financing on these properties? Oh, this is actually Anthony. I think you had or somebody was in here earlier and they had the mobile home park deal they're talking about. Here's what you can do. So and I talked about this on day 2. So you have an amortization period, which is like how long the loan is for, like 30-year, 20-year, whatever. But then you have a balloon payment, which is different. So a balloon payment is like when it cuts off the whole loan. So it would be like, you make your 30-year payment every month for 5 years, and then on the end of year 5, you like have the full remaining balance due. So typically, what you'll see for seller financing is which Brian actually was the guy that asked about this or about the park, and this is what I think he should probably do, is do a 30-year term, but then have like a short balloon. Because if you have a seller who's 85, they're not going to make it past 90 statistically. So then you should say, hey, I'll do a 5-year balloon or a 4-year balloon or whatever, so I can buy your thing for a high dollar amount, and then during that time frame of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever the balloon is, you improve the property dramatically, and then when you sell a refi, it when you sell a refi, you make all the money, and then you basically pay the guy back. So that's a way you can do it. So but yeah, you can usually do like 30-year seller finance. Yes, that's fine. You can do interest only too. So yeah. And then Brian, yeah, it looks like you're saying he's fine with the 7-year balloon. That's good. That's 7-year balloon is actually pretty good. Like ideally, you don't want any balloon, but like it's rare that you're going to find a seller that actually wants to have debt for a long time. So 7 years is pretty solid. But yep. All right, and then one last one, just because I'm staring at it, and then I do gotta go. All right, what would you do in a scenario when the seller's got 2 scraped mobile home parks in Southwest Florida, 20 acres, another 5, they got wrecked by a hurricane, all the infrastructure has been redone. Seller's asking $8 million or $13 million together. They're open to seller carry if you take on a bigger equity position. So this is here's exactly why. Like this is why I made this thing. Boom, right there, right? So like go use this tool, and why I love it so much. But I was like, I got to build this thing out, and it didn't take me too much time to do. But was the it spots stuff like flood zone or hurricane risk. It pulls FEMA data, like the actual data from disaster crews and government, right? It just pulls all that data, and it literally is like, yo, you're at high risk for hurricane in this particular county, because it does it like down to the city or county. So like I don't buy in areas that would do weather risk, because even if you fix up the property, it's just going to get shreked again, and I don't want to go deal with that. So that's a huge risk, especially if I'm taking on a lot of debt that I have to go pay back as personal debt. That's why I would just never want to do that. And additionally, if you're trying to wholesale or broker it over, the next guy is going to say the exact same thing, unless you find that one idiot that is like, I'm not saying like it is a bad deal or whatever, because you can always buy it for the right price, of course, but like there's some guys that like they just don't even think about it, and they're like, nah man, I'm going to buy like right in the worst zip code of the US for tornadoes. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you're going to have terrible insurance the whole time. So you can always find a sucker, but that's a lucky model, and it's also not necessarily like good for the economy / ethical. So what I mean with that, again, man, it sounds like I'm throwing a lot of shade at you because I'm not. What I'm saying is I would stick to a more reliable like buy box / model and look for the ones that doesn't have to rely on somebody being cavalier with their risk assessment in order to buy. Right. So just look for the areas that's not in like a war zone, basically. Or if you're going to get in a war zone, you better get it for like half off. So that way you can make up for that difference. So yeah, and as far as the seller carry on the on that, you'd have to the main issue is getting a bank in first. It's not about getting a seller carry in second. That seems like they're going to be begging to sell it. Yeah, you need a bank in first. Also, if you have a vacant mobile home park, it's really hard to infill those units if there's no home there. It's easy to fill the occupy the unit if it's already like a house that's there that you own. But getting a tenant to move their unit on, what's going to happen on the next, hurricanes? Everyone's going to move off like the week before it hits, So you're just going to constantly be dealing with issues. So I would really not recommend it. So it's like buying in a construction zone that's like not finished because they went bankrupt. It's like it's never going to get finished. You're just going to be dealing with issues forever. So I personally just really try to stay away from it. So, but all right, I hope you guys enjoyed a lot of this. Really trying to throw out a bunch of value. So again, go use my stuff. Go use the community. Go whatever. Just give me feedback on it. I just want to make stuff really good for everybody. And huge shout out John Johnson. Obviously, this is what REI Rev's all about, is like, really getting the info out there. I mean, I've been trolling around in here for years, just like, poking around, not like trolling, but like I've been like, in and out on conversations. Like you just cannot stop learning in here just because there's a lot of items to cover, and people come from a lot of different backgrounds. Like I was talking to a guy who runs a title company the other day, right? It's just, you're not going to run into that at a normal networking meeting in person. So yeah, I highly recommend the server. Obviously you guys are here, so you know what I'm talking about, but you go bring your friends in here. This is solid. So, but yeah. Cool. John, I don't know if you're here or not, man, but otherwise I will catch you guys all here next time. So there's the man himself, John Johnson.
Invite somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us. Send them that link, reirev.com, or Discord at discord.gg/reirev. We will catch you next Monday. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Likewise. All right.